Welcome to Dead Man Talking. Tonight's story is from our good friend the Holy Crusader over on Reddit No Sleep, and is, I believe, a 4-part Deep Woods series that I'm sure you can all sink your teeth into. Of course, as ever though, please do let us know what you thought down below in the comments box. Please do like and share. It really does help build the channel and our community further. And why not hashtag Team Fear and DMT's Cryptid Crew. And so, with that aside, let's get into tonight's story, entitled The Thing Residing in the Woods. Part 1. Let's get straight into that. To start, I will not use real names of people or places that I mention for my own and your safety. Now that that is clear, I can start with what I wish to tell you. I was born in a small town in a rural area outside US. My town stood on the edge of a forest, and me and my friends used to play in when we were children. And then one day when I was about 12, some kids went disappearing into the woods, which led to our parents fearing for our lives. We weren't allowed to play there anymore. For a long time, no one went deep into the forest until a pair of campers came into town. They went into the forest and were never seen again. That attracted a lot of adventure seekers, but drew away a lot of citizens that lived in the town. People continued disappearing without a trace. Some claimed it was a ghost. Some said it was a demon or some kind of cryptid. However, most thought it was a cult and claimed that they had heard chanting and saw a campfire light flickering in the forest. Only one thing was certain. It was connected to an old, abandoned hospital that stood deep into the forest. Local authorities started to build it but realized it wasn't needed and stopped when it was halfway done. Most people believed that this was the place where the cult resided. It was a perfect place for something like that. Others believed a monster made a nest there, while the rest believed that ghosts of people who were supposed to have been treated in that hospital but died because it wasn't built. My friends and I always believed it was just some local legend, and our theory was that some people came in from the town side and left from somewhere where no one would see them. The mystery raised the popularity of our town and bettered our economy. People now gained a lot of money from selling souvenirs, and acts like this would boost the number of their customers. As I mentioned, my friends and I didn't believe in these stories at all, and so we decided to spend a few nights in that hospital. We were teenagers and we were stupid. The only things we thought of were alcohol and sex. And there were 7 of us, including me, John, Tim, Jacob, Annie, Amanda, and Lilith, and myself, Keith. We were 18 or 19 at the time, and we knew each other for about 10 years and were close to each other. We agreed that everyone would meet at the beginning of the trial, that is the shortest way to the hospital. And there was a road built that led to the hospital, but it's overgrown with various bushes, and there was no way someone would be able to pass through it without a machete. The only problem was the fact that Lilith lived in another town. She would usually take a bus, but for some reason, they weren't driving for a few days. We decided that I should pick her up in my car. It would take me about 45 minutes there and the same amount back, giving me just enough time to tell her that I liked her. "Hey," she exclaimed when I parked in front of her house. She stood at her door, waving at me. "I'll be ready soon. Come in." It took her a few minutes to put on her proper clothes and prepare for camping. I spoke to her mother during that time. "I hope you're not going where you think you are," she said nervously. "And where would that be?" I tried to act stupid. "Please, don't go there." She grabbed my hand. "It's dangerous." I saw fear in her eyes. It seemed like she knew what the reason for all of those disappearances was. "Oh, Mom, stop bothering him. Everything will be fine," Lilith said while walking out of her room. They hugged and we left. Her mother was trying to protect her, but Lilith wouldn't listen to her, just like I didn't listen to my mother. I wish we'd listened. "Did you pack everything?" I asked Lilith just to start a conversation. "Yep, I have some snacks, a lot of water." She looked at me with her beautiful azure eyes. Look, anxiety started to build up inside of me. I have something to tell you.
Go on.
I like you. An awkward silence fell upon us. She didn't reply, and I already thought it was over.
I need to think. Okay?
She asked.
A lot is going on in my life right now.
I understand. I felt so ashamed. We didn't talk for the rest of the ride. The group was waiting for us when we arrived. Girls immediately hugged Lilith while I greeted the guys. We took the stuff out of my car's trunk and went into the forest. I forgot to mention that all the disappearances led to police closing the forest off. The trail that we chose to walk on was the furthest away from town, so it wasn't patrolled often. It was an easy way in. We sneaked under the police tape and started walking towards the hospital. I couldn't look away from Lilith. I thought about our interaction in the car and didn't even notice anything around me. Keith, John came up to me. You okay? Yeah. I snapped out of it. What's up? Something's wrong, he told me quietly. The others haven't noticed, but there was no animal sound since we entered the forest. I tried to listen, and he was right. There were no bird sounds. The forest is usually filled with birds. That's weird. Should we tell the others? I replied. No, they'll just start to panic. He looked around. We should keep an eye on our surroundings. I nodded at him. For the rest of our walk, nothing changed. The forest was as silent as it could have been, and our friends didn't even notice. I felt like something was following or looking at us, but wherever I'd look, there were just trees and ground. After walking for an hour, we finally arrived at the hospital. It was covered with plants. In some places, it missed glass, while in others, it was broken. It was a large building that should have been given shelter to many wild animals. However, we found none. And we found a room near the exit where we put our sleeping bags in. God, I can't believe how stupid we were. John and I went outside to gather some sticks and rocks to set up a campfire, and I was tasked with gathering rocks. While picking them up, I searched for bugs under the rocks, and still, I hadn't found any. Still no animals, not even bugs. And John was very nervous and bewildered. I looked on the trees and branches, even on the ground, but there's no life anywhere. And there's nothing under the rocks too. I pointed at a place from where I picked up one of the rocks. I heard stories about this sort of stuff, John murmured. There is this thing called a skinwalker, I think. It's a creature that can wear the skin of other living beings after it kills them. It can imitate their voices and all that crap. He took in a breath. And the proof of their presence are no animals and a stench of death. I didn't know what to say. I wanted to laugh at this, but everything up until now made me question it. Was he really right? Was this a doing of some native legend? We should get back, John told me. We walked on in on Lilith and Annie sitting around a place where they chose the campfire to be. Lilith and I looked at each other, but were quickly distracted by John throwing wood down onto the floor. Where are the others? I asked the girls. They went to check if there's something more in the building. Lilith showed towards the door. They have been gone for 5 minutes. Should we go look for them? They'll be here quickly. Amanda stood up. So, let's make a campfire. Amanda always enjoyed camping and was generally the best at surviving skills. She made the best campfires and was the best one at cooking over them. We wouldn't probably even come here if it was not for her. And we set up the rocks in a circle and put the sticks in the middle. There were a lot of small plants over the floor, and we figured out that they were probably easily flammable. After lighting a campfire, at this point the rest of the group were gone for a bit too long. I'm going to go look for them, I said as I stood up. Something might have happened. I'm going with you. Lilith stood up and looked at me. It's better if there's 2 of us. We checked a dozen rooms before Lilith spoke to me. Hey, she put her hair behind her ear. I had a thought about the thing earlier. Yeah? I was insanely nervous. Maybe we could wait for some time. As I already told you, a lot is going on in my life at the moment. And she looked away. I haven't told anyone, but my parents, they got divorced. Oh, I'll take as much time as you need. And she looked at me. Thank... A scream came from one of the rooms that were connected to the hallway we were in. Annie? Lilith said as we looked at each other. We immediately ran towards the sound and entered the room we thought the scream came from. Well, there was no one inside. I slowly started to walk in carefully, and as I stepped into the doorframe, Tim jumped out and scared the ever-living crap out of me. Before I realized it was him, I took a swing and punched him. Dude! He shouted, lying on the floor and holding his bleeding nose. What's wrong with you? I could hear Jacob laugh from the right side while Amanda just stood next to him, trying to keep her laugh in. Well, maybe don't try to scare me while we're in this building, filled with cultists. I stretched my arm to help him back up. Fair. He chuckled and took my hand. We found something. Jacob was still smiling. Look. He showed me some sort of wooden trapdoor. It's locked, but it could probably be broken. The trapdoor was in the furthest corner to the door. It was weird. Why was it there? No hospital needs a trapdoor. Who put it there? We should get back. You guys have been away for long enough, Lilith said. Everyone started to leave while I was still mesmerized by the door. I believed that something must have been behind them. I got a closer look at them. They were made of old rotten wood, but were thick and there were no space between the boards. It was locked with multiple locks that were rusted. And suddenly a terrible smell hit me. A smell of rotten and aged flesh. John's theory immediately came to my mind. I thought for a second and realized that it could be the cult sacrifice. I didn't make it any better, though. Come on, Keith, Lilith called from behind me. The others are waiting for us. We exited the room and got back to John and Amanda. They had already prepared some food for us. We ate and had some fun talk and then went to sleep. We were too tired from the walk. We all laid in our sleeping bags. I couldn't sleep at all. I was thinking about the trapdoor the entire time. Even the lack of animals confused me less than the trapdoor. I stupidly decided that I'll check the trapdoor alone. I stood up and took a flashlight and went into the hallway. I slowly made my way to the room with the trapdoor inside. There was nothing but specks of dust shined on by my flashlight. I haven't seen anything on my way to the room, but I felt some presence. Something must have been watching me, but I couldn't see anything. Upon entering the room, I shined my flashlight on the trapdoor. It was covered in dust. I stood under the doorframe, too distracted to move. The door started to shake lightly. It was gradually intensifying. I was shaking so hard that I needed to cover my ears, and suddenly it stopped, and silence filled the air once again. However, the dust that stood on it started to rise like there was no gravity. Dust on the floor around it stayed still. The dust specks flew around and started to go up into a circle. After about a minute, all the dust was on the ceiling. While looking at the ceiling, I heard a creak. I quickly looked at the trapdoor, and it was open now. I tried to see what was inside, but I couldn't see anything, just darkness. Even though my instinct told me not to get closer to it, I couldn't resist my will to look inside. And fear built up inside my chest, and I was breathing heavily. My heart was pumping as fast as it was able to, and I slowly walked up to it and shined my light inside. It looked like a large hallway that was filled with nothing. And there was a ton of debris just under where I stood. It looked like someone had tried to block the hallway. I was mesmerized by what I saw. I couldn't take my look away from it. And suddenly, a head appeared. The only thing I saw before jumping backwards and falling on my back was yellow, glowing eyes. My heart felt like it exploded, and I started crawling backwards while a dark shadow in the shape of a human child started rising from the trapdoor. The yellow eyes felt like they were glowing, even though they didn't emit any light. The figure was slightly hunched, and it was floating while its arms and legs hanged like there were no bones in it. It slowly started to move towards me. I tried to crawl back, but the thing that stood floated in front of me, much, much quicker. I went through the door frame and pressed myself on a wall opposite the side of the hallway. The thing left a track of dark smoke behind it, and I could hear some sort of whispering coming from the figure. It was very quiet, and I couldn't hear the words it was saying. I backed up to the wall, and without a thought that I could try to run away through the hallway, I accepted that I was done for.
Keith, what's going on?
I heard a soft voice come from my right side. I shined my light towards the direction of the sound.
Hey,
Lilith said as she covered her eyes with her hands.
Put that away. I can't see anything.
I turned my light in front of me, and there was nothing there.
Impossible,
I murmured. I looked at Lilith. She was so confused.
What are you doing on the floor?
She helped me get up.
Are you mad? Have you forgotten about all the disappearances? Something could have killed you.
Well, she was acting like my mum. It was weird, but I was happy that she cared about me. Even though her presence made me return to my normal state of mind, I was still scared and disorientated. What just happened? What was that thing? Was it even real?
Keith?
Lilith raised her tone.
What happened? Why aren't you answering me?
I shook my mind off the trapdoor. The door was open and something came from it. I looked into her eyes. It tried to kill me. She looked towards the trapdoor with skepticism as well as fear that could be seen in her eyes.
We shouldn't be here.
She directed a look back at me.
You want to go to sleep?
No, I don't believe I'll be able to fall asleep.
Then follow me,
she said as a smile appeared on her face. She started fast walking through one of the hallways. When she was about 10 feet away, she motioned for me to follow her with a hand, and so I did. She started running a few seconds later.
Catch me,
she shouted. Is that a challenge? I shouted back at her and started running. I noticed we were going up the stairs a few times and started to be wary of my surroundings. I thought this might be a continuation of that thing's trick.
You're too slow.
Lilith was running a few flights above me, and suddenly the sound just stopped. I thought the thing might have led me where it needed me to be, where it could kill me. But I didn't care. If it wanted to kill me, it would probably do so anyway. But if this is real, I might finally have a chance with Lilith. When I climbed up, I realized why there was no more sound coming from Lilith's footsteps. Lilith was sitting on the floor of the roof where there were no plants, and she was out of breath and looking up.
Look,
and she pointed at the sky.
The stars are beautiful.
There was a lot of light at the places where we usually hanged out, so we couldn't see them well. Lilith always liked the stars. Yeah, they are, I said as I looked up. I expected her to say something, but there was only silence. I looked down at her, but she wasn't there anymore. Lilith? I called out, but got no answer. I looked around and saw that the door I came through on the roof wasn't there anymore. I started panicking again. I believe that thing I saw come from the trapdoor tricked me and led me into a trap. I ran to the edge of the roof and looked down, and there was nothing but darkness there, like a huge pit so deep to the point where there is no bottom. I couldn't even see the lowest part of the hospital. My heart was still beating so hard from what I saw downstairs and from running after what I thought to be Lilith. I tried to look through the trees, but the thick and tall treetops wouldn't let my eyes settle on anything but them. And there was nowhere else to look but up. At first I didn't see anything. Then something blocked the shining of the stars, and then another one, and then a third one, and so on. Something was flying high up in the sky. A droplet fell on my head, but I haven't even noticed because I focused on the dark figure in the sky. And then another one fell on my head. This one was much larger. I tried to wipe it out with my hand, I immediately knew this wasn't water. I brought it up before my eyes and noticed it was much darker than water. I still wasn't able to distinguish what it was, and so I sniffed it. It smelled of iron. It was blood. Another droplet fell from the sky, but in front of me this time. More and more started falling after it, and after a few seconds, it became a downpour of blood. The sky became red, but there was no light. I could properly see everything around me. I could see everything covered in blood. I looked at my hands. They were almost completely red, and I could feel the blood falling all over me. I tried to look up to check if I could see the source of the downpour. For a second, I saw that there were no clouds, just a clear, red sky. I couldn't hold my head looking up because the blood started to fall in my mouth. I quickly bent my head down to spit out the blood. I saw a bright light on the roof for a second, and then thunder roared through the air. Why was there lightning if there were no clouds? I looked up again, and there was another thunder revealing the figure. It floated just above the treetops, about 400 feet in front of me. Its enormous size shattered my soul. I started panicking even more than before. Another lightning revealed it much closer. I was moving fast, but most certainly not as fast as it could. I believe it was toying with me. A bolt of lightning shined again, and I was able to see the shape of the thing for a second. The picture of it floating towards me will forever be ingrained in my memory. A black head made of 4 jaws. Atop of each of the jaws were 2 dark red eyes, one larger and one smaller. His head spread into 8 tentacles connected with dark red skin. The skin went only to about 1/3 of the tentacles, and there was something fluorescent on all the tentacles. It was like a line that started just behind the jaws and ran to the top of the tentacles. The light was flickering. The light was weak and coloured bright blue. The tentacles were followed with some long, thin snake-like body. My body just froze. I tried to move my arms and legs, but I couldn't do anything. And as the creature got closer, I was able to hear the sound it produced, louder and louder. It was a mixture of deep pulsating and clicking voices. And when the thing finally arrived above the hospital, I realized how large it was. It must have been between 70 or 80 feet long, and it was spinning horizontally and used its tentacles to move like a jellyfish. And the thing slowly circled me, and I could see its eyes following me. The 8 dark red circles with dark black pupils, so small I barely was able to see them. The thing stopped before me after circling me 3 more times. The blood that was raining down turned into smoke as soon as it fell onto the monster's skin, creating dark smoke that followed the creature around.
"Naive child,"
I heard a deep, booming voice.
"You shouldn't have come here."
At first, I thought the voice was coming from the creature, but it wasn't. It was coming from my head. The creature possessed some telepathic abilities.
"I will feast with you and your friends tonight."
The creature laughed.
"But don't worry, my friend. You will be a part of something bigger. You will help me create the rift."
As soon as the creature said that, I woke up lying down on the floor. My head hurt like hell, and there was a ringing in my ears. "Keith?" I saw Lilith kneeling over me. "Oh, what happened?" I lifted my torso into a sitting position. "He just fell unconscious for a minute." She stood up. "I was worried." I put my hand on my head, and suddenly some sort of muffled scream came from the stairs we'd climbed. Lilith and I looked at each other. I could see the fear inside her eyes. We started to hear running from the stairs, and it was getting louder and louder. I tried to get up, and Lilith was helping me, but before I stood up, a creature appeared in the doorway. It was human. However, some parts of the body, they were missing skin and flesh. It was missing the lower jaw, and its tongue hangs beneath its upper jaw. Blood and saliva were falling from it. It didn't have a left eye, just a pit. His right eye was still there, but it was red with blood. Its left side of its face missed skin and even revealed its skull apart, while the area around its right eye still had skin, but it was damaged and pale. Its neck was completely red with blood because it was missing its lower jaw. The rest of its body looked like some kind of animal tore it apart. It had claw marks on its chest, missing large chunks of flesh at parts, and bones were revealed on the larger portion of its arms. The thing screeched at us and charged. I tried to get away, but it grabbed my leg. It started dragging me towards the stairs. As it dragged me through the doorway, I grabbed the framework. The creature wouldn't let go, and so I hit its face with my leg. I managed to push away and tried to run away, but it caught up with me quickly and grabbed my leg again, and I fell to the floor, face first. I almost broke my nose, and I bit my tongue so hard I thought I'd bit it in half. The thing turned me around and bent over me. Its saliva and blood fell all over my face. I tried to free myself, but the thing, I was too strong. And suddenly, I heard metal hitting flesh and see the thing falling on its side. I quickly stood up, and just then I felt the pain of the wounds I had on my legs. The thing pierced my flesh with its claws, and my face was covered with saliva and blood, both mine and the creature's. I looked to my left and saw Lilith holding some sort of pipe. She ran to the creature and started hitting its head. The pieces of it flew all over the air. And after a few hits, the monster's head was completely shattered, and there was a ton of blood around the pieces that were still whole. Lilith looked at me, her shirt covered in blood.
Did I just kill someone?
She asked me as her eyes started to tear up. The pipe she was holding fell to the floor. She ran up to me and hugged me.
Are you okay?
She put her hand on my cheek and tried to take a closer look at my nose. Yeah, I lied. I was dizzy from hitting the floor with such force. We should get out of here. And so Lilith picked up the pipe and we started going down the stairs. The wounds on my legs hurt like hell and they were bleeding. We needed to get to our sleeping bags fast. We had some bandages there. Combining those wounds and the dizziness made my way going down the stairs hard for me. Lilith went in front of me, holding the pipe. When we were on the 3rd floor, we heard more footsteps, and they were coming from the ground floor. At this point, almost all the dizziness was gone. We slowly and quietly advanced down the stairs. Then we heard footsteps on the first flight of stairs. Both of us stopped, and Lilith was ready to use the pipe. The footsteps were progressing up, closer and closer to us. They reached the 1st floor, and then the 2nd. And as they were climbing up the stairs to the 3rd floor, we started hearing sobbing. Both of us recognized it immediately. "Honey?" both of us said quietly as we looked at each other. We started going down and saw her standing at the top of the stairs. John stood in front of her, looking around. "John," I quietly called after him. "On the stairs." "Keith?" John said confusedly. "You're alive?" I can't explain the joy I felt in his voice. Annie and Lilith hugged each other. "Where are the others? What happened?" I asked John. "We were sleeping and I heard something. I tried to wake up the others, but the monsters came in faster." He stopped for a second. "I was able to wake up Annie and Tim on time. The things dragged Jacob and Amanda away."
"Did you follow them?"
Lilith asked. "No." John turned to her. "There were 6 monsters. 4 of them dragged Jacob and Amanda away while 2 attacked Annie and Tim. I managed to save Annie by pushing the thing off her and stabbing it with this." He showed us a hunting knife. "Where did you get that from?" I never saw him using it before. "I got it from my grandfather. He used to go hunting before his friend was mauled to death by a bear."
"We didn't save Tim,"
Annie murmured.
"The monster was too fast for us."
"I managed to kill that thing at least. I lifted my knife into the air and brought it down on the monster's neck. I almost cut the monster's head right off." And John was very proud of his victory. "Lilith killed one too," I told Jacob. "Are you guys hurt?"
I hit my head, but I'm okay, Annie said. You?
The creature left me with some bad wounds. I showed the wounds on my leg to John and Annie. I need bandages. Are there any left at camp?
No worries,
John said as he showed me 3 bandages he took out of his pocket.
We know that 4 other monsters are running around. We thought we would need the bandages if we run into the monsters.
I sat onto one of the lower stairs and Lilith covered my wounds with bandages.
What now?
Lilith asked when she was done.
We should go look for Jacob and Amanda, John said. They might still be alive.
What?
Are you mad?
Annie replied. Her face was covered in tears.
We will die if we go looking for them. And what do you propose?
Lilith asked her.
We should get out of here. Fast. We should call the police and that's it. End of this horror.
We can't just leave Jacob and Amanda here, John said angrily.
We don't even know they're alive.
Annie was giving up. I have an idea, I said as I stood up. John and I will stay here and try to find Jacob and Amanda. Annie and Lilith, we will escort you outside. You call the police and we'll hope that they'll come on time.
That could work.
Lilith looked at me.
But why should I run away?
Well, you're the fastest. John is the most capable of us to fight, and I don't think I'm able to run. She nodded at me. I looked at John and Amanda, and both of them agreed. We started going down the stairs, and John was first, followed by me and Lilith and Amanda in the back. We found a metal bar on the first floor, and I took it to use as a weapon. While I was picking up the bar, we heard footsteps. John put a finger to his lips and slowly started walking down the stairs. And the rest of us followed him quietly, about another 6 feet behind him. When we were close enough to see the bottom of the stairs, we saw one of the things sniffing the floor and the air. It was standing on all 4s, and there was a hole in its upper torso. We could see the floor through the hole. The top of its skull was completely clean of flesh and skin. The entirety of its back was skinned, and some of it was even hanging from its shoulder. And John was getting closer and closer to it with his knife in the air. And when he was almost at the bottom of the stairs, the monster turned its head and looked at John. It was missing all the flesh and skin that was supposed to be on its face. It was just a skull. However, it still screeched at us. John jumped at it and started stabbing the ever-living hell out of it. The monster was still screeching at him as it swiped at him with its claws. It didn't manage to cut John, but it did push him off of him. I climbed down as quickly as I could, and before I could jump at John, I smacked it on its head with my bar, and I made it fall to the floor, and John started stabbing at its back. It let out another screech, one much louder and powerful than any of the previous ones. And after about 20 stabs from John and a few hits from me, the creature was down.
The other 3 must have heard this.
Lilith was quick to notice.
We must move.
Lilith's theory was confirmed not even a second after she brought it up. 3 other screeches were coming from the side, opposite the gate we had entered through.
Run!
John shouted. John and I let Amanda and Lilith run before us. And as we were about to reach the door, I looked behind and saw the 3 of those things gaining on us. Lilith and Amanda would leave the hospital for sure, but John and I would stay and fight. If we had struggled to kill 1, how were we supposed to fight 3? When we arrived at the door, Lilith stopped.
Good luck,
she said, and then kissed me. She waved at us while walking backwards and started to run into the forest. And after a few seconds, the 2 of them disappeared into the darkness. I turned around and saw the 3 creatures were much closer now and were coming towards me and John very fast. I lifted a bar and prepared to hit the creatures. But the first 2 jumped at us, one at me and one at John. The one that jumped at John took him down, but John was able to stab it into its ribs. His knife got stuck inside the creature, and he was now struggling to keep the creature away from killing him. I hit the one that tried to jump at me, and my rod connected with the creature's face, and that action made it hit the wall and fall to the floor. The second one tried to run past us, but I hit its legs and shattered parts of its bones. The thing screeched in pain and fell to the floor, and I hit it on the head with my rod multiple times until it exploded, covering me in more blood and pieces of flesh. The creature that hid the wall was now up and tried to get into the forest, and before it ran past me, I grabbed its leg and tried to pull it back. It fell to the floor as it tried to run away, but when it realized that it wasn't going to escape as long as I held it by its leg, the thing tried to swipe at me with its arm and made me let it go. As soon as I did, the thing sprinted into the forest. I knew Lilith would be able to deal with the thing, so I didn't start running after it. Instead, I turned to John, who was still struggling with the creature atop of him. I put my rod down and brought it up with all the strength I had while hitting the monster at its shoulder. The hit shattered the monster's shoulder into 1,000,000 of small pieces of bone, and its hand fell on the floor next to John. John grabbed his knife with both of his hands and managed to pull it out, and he was able to stab it at its leg 2 times before I hit it right into its face, causing it to fly backwards. It fell on its back a few feet away and screeched in pain. I had managed to stand up and started to get away. I was slower than before, thanks to the wounds that John had inflicted on it. John tried to run after it, but I stopped him. "It's going somewhere," I spoke. "We should follow it." "Why?" burst out of John's mouth. "It might lead us to Jacob and Amanda." I stopped for a few seconds, and I believe there's something more to this. "What do you mean?" I felt his look on my face. We started to follow the creature, and I explained my vision, dream, or whatever it was, of that snake-like tentacle creature. Never before did I see John as disturbed and scared as he was at that moment. Why didn't you tell us earlier?" "I don't know," I replied. "I probably forgot about it because I hit my head." "Great. Now we are most certainly dead." "Not for now," I said, looking at the humanoid creature in front of us. "Let's just focus on finding Amanda and Jacob." The thing was slowly walking through the hallway, leaving a trail of blood from its wounds on its leg. It was struggling to walk and held its shattered shoulder with a hand that was still attached to its body. We could hear heavy breathing coming from the thing. I questioned myself what those things were. Were they even alive? They showed signs of life and even senses, like pain. They had blood and human body parts. However, bodies in those states would never be able to live. There was too much flesh and other tissue missing from those bodies. And the thing turned and entered one of the rooms in the hallway. It took me a second to realize what room the thing had entered. It was the room with the trap door, and I stopped in front of it. Once again, I froze. "What's wrong?" John broke me out of it. "There's something about that trap door." I looked him in his eyes. I believe there's something dangerous behind it." "Well," John started, "it was these things, probably." He entered the room, and I followed him. And as soon as I entered, I looked at the trap door, and it was open. "I guess this is it," John said. "We'll probably die." Yeah, I couldn't take my eyes off the trap door. We will. Wow. Certainly another one. Wow. What a chest-pounding and refreshing storyline there from the incredible mind of Born on Bez 00 over on Reddit No Sleep, aka the Holy Crusader. As ever, a huge thank you to the author for allowing me to narrate their story on the show. Certainly look forward to the next parts of this and further work from yourself in the future. And I hope you enjoyed my rendition. Well, guys and girls, you know the drill. As ever, please do let us know what you thought down below in the comments box. Please do like and share. It really does help build the channel and our community further. Why not hashtag Team Fear and DMT's Cryptid Crew. If you're an aspiring writer or would just like to have a crack at things like myself, then please do get in touch with me at the brand new contact email. Which is, as on screen, contactthedeadone@gmail.com. I really look forward to hearing from you. Well, as ever guys, I hope you're all well and happy, keeping fit and focused. But above all, remember, be safe, not sorry.